Well, hello, folks out there on YouTube. Len got a big show lined up for you. Let's get right on into it. All right, folks. Yep. Jim Harbaugh, he talks about why he left Michigan. He says it was a lack of trust. And Notre Dame is asking Congress to step in and save college football from the NCAA settlement with House, Hubbard, and Carter, all those class action lawsuits that involve antitrust. Notre Dame wants them to step in. I'm not going to hold my breath. All right, let's start with Jim Harbaugh. He has come out and he's talking about why he left Michigan. And he talks about the lack of trust with his athletic director and also the commissioner of the Big Ten. So let's get into this story, and actually it's in a book. Here it says, trust issues reportedly played a major role in Jim Harbaugh leaving Michigan for the Chargers. And the book's going to be called The Price, What It Takes to Win in College Football Era of Chaos. And a big issue was the athletic director, Ward Manuel, said that kind of pushed him out. Says the book states the following details of why Harbaugh left. He had a getaway with his wife, Sarah, on an island off the coast of San Diego. He unloaded to a longtime friend, Todd Anson. Said he wanted to remain at Michigan, but believed Manuel, no matter his public pronouncements, was not the advocate he needed in his corner, particularly in front of the Board of Regents. He also raged against Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti, who before the 3-game Big Ten suspension had promised to meet Harbaugh in Ann Arbor and brief him on what the conference was doing, only to stand him up. And then he kind of calmed down the next day after he met with the Chargers, because obviously they were offering him a lot of money, and he started realizing that the obvious out was to leave. And you got to put yourself in the Michigan boat that they were in at that time. You've got the NCAA getting ready to put the hammer down on not only your head coach, but also the entire athletic department, because that's what they like to do. And they were probably going to spend 1-2 years, and they're still investigating as we speak over the Connor Stay and sign stealing deal, which is really the big enchilada. The other stuff that he did, the cheeseburgers and all that, they can live with all that. They just do their little 3-game suspension, which was, I thought, kind of ridiculous, and just live with that. But he said they were gunning for me, and he's 100% right. They were definitely gunning for him. And later on it says, it sounds like Harbaugh definitely didn't have much faith in Manuel to protect him amid rising issues, and in the fact Tony Petitti had already slapped him with 1 suspension. It's not hard to see why he wanted out. He was going to get at least a 1-year suspension and probably a bunch of show cause. It might have been even worse. It was going to be a really bad situation because the NCAA was going to make an example out of him, because also he wasn't cooperating because he had no respect for the NCAA and their infractions committee. I mean, he just didn't care for them and didn't think that they should be messing around with his program. And that's the type of thing that will really get the NCAA fired up. Now, of course, they're a shell of their former selves now because of their recent loss in court and, of course, this NCAA settlement and all of that. And I can kind of understand your athletic director's situation and also Michigan, because they were really between a rock and a hard place with Harbaugh. If they kept him, they knew they were going to get hammered. Tons of scholarship reductions, huge fine, which they can live with the huge fine. But to wind up with your coach not being able to coach and having to pay him, and that was the other important thing. He was trying to put in the contract that even if he got suspended, they couldn't get out of the contract and they had to pay him no matter what. And this article talks about in the wake of Connor Stay and sign stealing investigation, they wanted to review 6,200 emails plus texts. And oh, by the way, they wanted his school phone and his private phone, which that's a really hard thing to get from people, is start going through their phones and doing all that kind of stuff and all their emails. His attorney, Tom Marsh, told Harbaugh's agent and Jim as clearly as he could that, in my opinion, if he stayed at Michigan, the Commission on Infractions is going to punish Jim under the coach's responsibility legislation, and he's dealing with the commission that's clearly manifested bias against him. He's going to sit out 4 games, maybe 6, or whatever we're doing. They're going to find him guilty. He was going to sit out way more than that. I think that's being kind. And even though he was being offered an $11 million per year contract plus performance-based bonuses, the lawyers there at Michigan had pressed for termination language that would protect the school in the event of an unforeseen turn in the sign stealing investigation. It says where the stumbling block came was trying to find the best way to handle any additional information from the second case. We didn't know at the time of the signing. Athletic Director Ward Manuel told us. So to your question, did this affect Jim's decision to go to the NFL? I don't know. Of course it did. He said, but I know I told him under the circumstances I could not imagine any reason why he would not take the opportunity to go to the NFL if it presented itself. In other words, his attorney was saying, you need to get out of here. You need to run.
Brave Sir Robin ran away. No! Bravely ran away. I didn't!
Don't walk, run, which is exactly what he did. For $16 million a year, I believe, is what he got paid there with the Chargers. So he got even a bigger raise than he was planning on getting. So that's pretty much why he left. And I think that's what most people thought. It was that Michigan, they kind of had his back, but didn't have his back. And then he got offered a bunch more money to go to the pros, and he knew he was going to get hammered by the NCAA. He's tired of being punished. And Jim Harbaugh is not the type of guy that you can push around. He is the opposite of that, the polar opposite of that. He's the type of guy that if you push him, he's going to push you 10 times harder back. He is not going to take any crap from the NCAA. He doesn't respect him. So his attorney, fully understanding the personality he's dealing with, which is the super A-type alpha male, realized you need to get out of here, dude. You do not have the personality for what you're getting ready to go through, because they were going to put him through a meat grinder. And Jim Harbaugh would have just blown up. He would have lost his mind over it. So that's a good reason to have an attorney. And Tom Mars is a good one. So there's your answers on Jim Harbaugh. For obvious reasons, he had to get out of town. And he did. And I'm sure we'll find out a lot more about the Connor Stallions thing, but realize nobody's cooperating. Connor's not cooperating. Harbaugh's not cooperating. They're both skedaddled. One resigned or quit or got fired or whatever. I think he just resigned because he kind of had to. And then Harbaugh just took off. So your two main guys aren't going to cooperate. So it's going to make it tricky for NCAA to get everything. They're still going to hit them hard with scholarship reductions and some huge fine. And who knows, there'll probably be some other coaches that might have to deal with some ramifications. It's hard to say. But that's still a big mess up there. All right, now we're going to get into Notre Dame implores Congress to save great American institution after undesirable $2.8 billion settlement. Now, we've talked about this a lot. The NCAA has settled, or they've voted, all the conferences have voted to agree to a settlement of around almost $2.8 billion. And that's to not only pay 14,000 student athletes who were not able to participate in NIL from 2016 until present, until NIL became legal, and the ability for athletes to share in revenue brought in by the schools, which is a two-part deal. And that's to deal with House, Hubbard, and Carter, which are those class action lawsuits that we've been covering. And you've still got the other one, Fontenot, that's out there that doesn't want to be lumped into that, but they are going to study this settlement. I'm going to go ahead and tell you they won't like it because it doesn't mean more money for those attorneys. They want the max they can get, and they want to do the best for their clients. So they're going to try to stay clear of that, but they'll probably get lumped in, would be my guess, because that one's about TV rights. That's a Colorado player that's mad about the TV rights money that they were unable to get. But this pretty much, in my opinion, totally deals with that, because now you're getting revenue sharing and scholarships. And what it is, it's 22% of the revenue. But when you add scholarships on top of that, you're approaching 40, 50% of total revenue that's brought in going to the players in some form or fashion, whether it's cash money or whether it's scholarship or whether it's some other inducement and or compensation. And Notre Dame's got it in their head that Congress is going to step in and give them an antitrust exemption. But folks, I got to tell you, the odds of that are not that great. It's extremely hard to get Congress to step into anything along these lines. And then on top of it, it's not that popular. It's just not a popular position to take, to be able to give an antitrust to all these super rich, what people consider super rich, wealthy schools that have been taking advantage of athletes for years, in many people's opinion. You may totally disagree with that, and that's fine. I'm just telling you that Congress, they put their finger up in the air and check the winds. And if the winds aren't blowing in the direction they want them to, they're not going to vote and do anything.
Ooh, I love to dance a little sidestep. Now they see me, now they don't. Have come and gone.
And here, Notre Dame saying Congress must pass legislation that will preempt the current patchwork of state laws, establish that our athletes are not employees, but students seeking college degrees, and provide protection from further antitrust lawsuits that will allow colleges to make and enforce rules that will protect our student athletes, blah, 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 blah. And it talks about the revenue compensation system. which will be around $22 million a year, or 22% of the revenue taken in, plus scholarships. Now we're going to talk about NIL and Title IX, and these are two major issues that are not spoken to in this settlement. The first thing is NIL. I think NIL will continue on. I do not see that getting separated. It also will play a role in helping schools get around some of this and be able to have a competitive advantage. So they're going to want to keep it. And on top of it, it also impacts Title IX because these collectives don't have to do anything about Title IX. They're a third party separate of the universities and colleges. So they can kind of do what they want, pay what they want to the players based on name, image, likeness, etc. And they don't have to worry about Title IX. These colleges and universities absolutely have to deal with Title IX. And that is not addressed in here at all. And some of the attorneys have spoken to it. You know, are they going to split the money down 50-50? It's going to be really tricky because understand most of the money comes in because of either football, which is probably 70 or 80% of the money brought in. And then, of course, you got men's basketball, and you do have some money brought in from women's basketball. But that's, you know, the lion's share is football and men's basketball. Well, Title IX doesn't give a crap about that. It's not gonna be like that. Whereas a lot of these attorneys like, oh, well, you know, they can work it out, some sort of workaround to where the money goes to the athletes that are actually producing this revenue or bringing in this revenue, which I think is kind of quaint and cute. And it's old-fashioned thinking. That's not going to play out. Title IX doesn't give a crap about that. And this business that somehow they're going to be able to do a workaround Title IX is laughable. You know, it almost reminds me of the deal with Tennessee and NCAA with them going after Nico and all of that over NIL. And I kept telling you folks, it's not going to play out that way. The NCAA is going to get their butt kicked, which is pretty much what's already happened. They've already got the preliminary restraining order. And I had a bunch of people saying, how do you know they're going to kick their butt? How do you know they're going to win? I was telling you that before the decision came out for the preliminary restraining order. People that are sick and tired of the NCAA, and they see this for what it is. It's a total double standard. You're coming in retroactively changing the rules and then saying, oh, well, we changed the rules now, so anything that happened prior, we're going to pretend these rules were there the entire time. It's absurd, it's ridiculous, and it's going to get destroyed in court. Man, I was ticked off, wasn't I? That was when the NCAA was coming after us, and I knew we were going to kick their butts, but I was not happy about it because I knew what they were doing. It was so obvious they were going to try to make an example out of Tennessee. And here's what I can tell you. We warned them. Our Attorney General warned them, said, don't go down this path. You're going to regret it.
Don't be a fool. We can do this easy, or we can do it real easy.
And, of course, now they regret it big time. Because they're in a world of hurt on that case, and they know they're going to lose. They're not even trying. And it has totally defanged them. They can't do anything on NIL now, and they don't even try. And you're welcome, Florida. We saved your bacon. Big time. So anyway, the Title IX thing to me is exactly the same thing. There's no way Title IX is not going to go in there and grab half for the ladies. There's no way it's not. You're probably going to wind up with a bunch of female athletes making a whole lot of money playing golf or tennis, or the rowing team, you know, obviously the basketball team, the ladies basketball or ladies softball, because they got to pay them. You know, if they're going to pay out $20 million, I bet you $10 million will go to the men and 10 will have to go to the women. You might have a female rower making $100,000 rowing on a river, or a golfer, which is just shocking to me as somebody that played at UT playing golf. I can't even imagine somebody paying me $100,000 to play college golf. You might end up with that at major universities where there's a young lady out there playing golf getting $100,000. It's possible. We'll see. I just can't see Title IX not taking their 50%. It would surprise the crap out of me. And having understood how politics works, I'm just saying, we'll see how it plays out, but I'll bet you they get their 50%. Or they'll have to do a workaround with the NILs, which is another reason to keep the NILs, is because then you don't have to worry about Title IX. All the money that goes in there can go to whoever you want. And some of it might go to a Caitlin Clark or some other terrific young female player. But most of it's going to go to the quarterbacks and running backs and some of the basketball players and all that. So anyway, I wanted to cover these big issues. First of all, the Harbaugh, we finally find out 100% that he left because of these reasons. And, of course, Notre Dame, I don't see the Congress stepping in for you. I think you're just going to have to get used to paying players, and that's hard for Notre Dame because this is one of the most stubborn universities. It's a great university, by the way. It's awesome. But they are so stubborn that they won't even join their own conference. They think they're special.
Well, Lottie frickin' da!
Oh, yeah. Lottie freaking da. But anyway, if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Lets me continue to cover all these big college sports stories. Man, I was mad a few months ago over that. Jeez. Anyway, if you've not subscribed, hit this little button right here. Will not cost you a dime and helps me out. I would appreciate it. And right over here's the most recent video. YouTube, thanks, you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay.